Jake here for Extreme Terrain, and today I'm taking a look at the Rough Country 3.5-inch suspension lift kit with the M1 monotube shocks, fitting 2007 to 2021 Tundras excluding TRD Pro models. If you're looking for a comprehensive way to get more height for off-roading or larger wheels and tires at a more budget-friendly price, you're going to want to check out this kit from Rough Country. This is a bolt-on all-inclusive lift kit that's going to get you 3.5 inches of extra height while also leveling out the stance of your truck and maintaining a stock ride quality, giving you the overall suspension geometry very close to stock too. Now this is again a 3.5-inch lift, so it's going to provide you enough clearance to run some larger wheels and tires on your truck as well. Now some beefy 33-inch tires are going to fit on here with no issue, as you can see in our truck here. Now starting up front, you get a set of Rough Country's heavy-duty upper control arms. Now these are forged aluminum arms, and they include new Clevite rubber bushings and new ball joints too, so they're going to provide you excellent absorption of road impacts. They're pretty lightweight overall, and they have a lot of structural integrity, enough definitely to hold up to whatever abuse you could find to throw at them. Now you may have also noticed that the ball joints here are angled to accommodate for that lift, so despite adding quite a bit of height, these are going to keep things pretty close to the factory suspension geometry. The angle is going to be just right here, it's not going to be overstressed. So that's going to help maintain your factory ride quality as well and give you a full range of motion up front so you can take advantage of that added ride height. Also up front, you get a set of Rough Country's M1 loaded struts. Now these also feature the ability to adjust the height, and you probably can't see it here on the camera, but there are a couple different slots along the body of the shock here, so you can adjust where the spring perch sits. So if you want them down a little bit lower, you've got the option to do that. However, that job is going to require some disassembly. You're going to have to compress the spring, take the top hat off, and do all that. Now these are one of Rough Country's more premium shock options. They feature nitrogen charging with infinitely variable damping, so it's going to give you a smooth, almost stock ride quality. But these are also designed specifically for lifted applications, so they're meant to do exactly this. The damping is tuned here to keep the ride smooth on the road, and they have self-adjusting deflective discs inside for independent rebound and compression adjustments, all of which is done automatically. You don't need to touch anything. So these are going to do a really good job of absorbing impacts and controlling rebound, especially when you're out on the trail. And that nitrogen charging inside also helps with heat dissipation, so even under really aggressive off-roading conditions where you're hitting a bunch of undulations right in the road, these are not going to suffer from fade. So you can use them to their full extent without having to worry about fading or losing control. In the rear, you have a set of spacers that's going to give you most of the extra height and match this, level it up to the front of the truck. Now the spacers themselves measure about 2 inches at their highest point, but this combined with the shocks and everything else that you've got going on here, it's going to give you about a 2.5-inch lift overall in the rear. So again, this is also going to function as a leveling kit. You're going to get extra height, but the truck is going to sit nice and even. You also get a set of Rough Country's M1 monotube shocks in the rear here. Same things, match in the front to keep everything in check and maintain that really solid ride quality. Again, like the front struts, these are nitrogen charged and they feature that infinitely variable damping, so it's going to give you a nice smooth stock ride quality. And again, this is a totally matched set front to rear. There are a couple of other things that are worth noting as well. In addition to the blocks that you have in the rear, you've got these spacers for the front differential mount and some sway bar extension brackets as well, so you can get everything to stay where it needs to be. So again, much like we had with the front control arms and everything else up here, this is going to help you maintain that factory type of suspension geometry so things are not going to be overly stressed. Construction here is all quite solid as well, as it is with most of these Rough Country kits. Now, like we were talking about earlier, the front control arms here are made from forged aluminum for strength and weight savings. You don't have any seams or welds or anything to break on these, so you can be sure that they're strong. Now, the front struts and the rear shocks have an absolutely massive 2-inch extruded tube with a 45mm bore and 18mm hardened chromed piston rod. So these are really solid. They are hefty when you take them out of the box too. And the bodies are finished in zinc plating for good looks and some additional durability too. Now up front, because these are the complete struts, you're also going to get new top hats and the springs that we mentioned as well, plus the aforementioned rear spacers. Now these are made from a heavy duty composite type of material. It's super strong, it's also super lightweight. Plus you've got new U-bolts for the rear as well to accommodate for these bigger spacers, and you've got these front differential mount spacers and these sway bar spacers too. So everything is really nice, it's all finished nicely too, so it's going to give you a really solid setup here. Pricing for this kit comes in at about $1,400, and for all that you're getting here, that is a really competitive price. Now, of course, there are less expensive options out there, but they're not gonna have all the features like the hefty shocks, the struts, the control arms, stuff like that. You could spend a lot more on another kit, but for a truck that's gonna see some mixed street and trail usage, this is gonna be an excellent option. It's not gonna totally blow out your entire budget for your build. Installation is gonna get a 3 out of 3, and it's likely gonna take you upwards of 6 hours to get this completed. Now, while you can do this at home in your driveway, most of this stuff bolts right on. And again, everything you need here is included, but it is a bit of an involved job. Rough Country does call out that there is some trimming involved, so make sure you pay attention when we get to this next part of the video. And if you aren't necessarily comfortable disassembling suspension components or taking a grinder to part of your truck, or even just getting to these pieces, absolutely consider professional installation. You can check out our Install Connect program too. We'll hook you up with somebody who's ready to do this installation for you at a flat rate. No fuss, no muss. But if you want to see what the steps are that are involved, why don't we go ahead and head out to the install bay now.
For this install, you will need air and electric impacts, 3/8 and 1/2 inch ratchet, various extensions, 3/8 to 1/2 inch adapter, 1/2 inch swivel adapter, 10, 12, 13, 16, 17, 19, 22 deep and shallow and 24mm sockets, 13/16 socket, clip removal tool, 13, 14, and 15mm ratcheting wrenches, 17 and 18mm wrenches, 18mm ratcheting wrench, 2 22mm wrenches and a 7/8 wrench, a breaker bar, a large pry bar, ball joint service kit, and a large set of pliers. Tools also needed, not shown here, are a jack and jack stands or pole jacks. What's up guys, today we're going to be installing a lift kit on our Tundra, so let's get started. So to start, we've got our truck up in the air, we've got our wheels off, we've got our rear differential supported, and now we're going to begin by taking off our parking brake and regular brake brackets from the rear to allow room for travel so we can drop our differential down. So we've got our 12mm socket on our ratchet, let's go ahead and get those off. So we'll go ahead and get our 12mm bolts removed from our bracket up here on the frame rail. Then we'll move on to our other ones. Once that drops down, get that out of the hook there. We'll go ahead and put our hardware right back in a couple threads because we will be reusing it, and just makes it easier to keep track. And we'll do the same thing for our differential bracket here. Place our hardware, and this will be the same for both sides. Next, we can come to the top of our center of our differential here and remove our center brake line bracket. Make sure that moves. This one we're going to keep out just because it doesn't have as much room for travel. And then we can come over and remove our next bracket over here. Now we can begin removing our shocks, and to do that we're going to start by loosening up our 17mm nut up top, and we're going to grab our 17mm ratcheting wrench for that. Crack that loose. Go ahead and get our nut off, and we can remove our top bushings. So now we can go ahead and remove our bottom mounting bolt for our shock. So we've got our 17mm socket on our impact and our 17mm wrench. Go ahead and get that off. And set your nut aside. And you may need to adjust where your differential is sitting to get some free play in your bolt there. And just go ahead and work it out. Now we can get our bolt out here. And you want to make sure you support your shock because remember, you already removed the top nut. We'll go ahead and drop our shock out while grabbing our bushing from our top mount. And we'll go ahead and set these aside. Then you can go ahead and repeat this process for your other side. Next, we're going to remove our end links from our sway bar. We're going to use our 18mm socket on our impact and a 19mm wrench. Go ahead and pop that out. Then we can go ahead and repeat this for the other side. So now we can go ahead and remove our U-bolts from our differential. So we use our 19mm socket on our impact. Go ahead and pull these off. We'll go ahead and remove our bracket. Now we can go ahead and remove our factory U-bolts. And once you have it done for this side, you can go ahead and repeat this process for the other side. So now we can go ahead and begin removing our front suspension. And we're going to start by disconnecting our sway bar end link from our lower control arm. We use our 19mm socket on our impact to do that. And you can do the same thing for the other side. Next up, we can go ahead and remove our cotter pin from our outer tie rod end. We'll grab our needle nose pliers to straighten it out. You want to get them as straight as possible before you try to pull them out, just to make life easier. We'll go ahead and work that right out. Set that aside. Next, we can remove our castle nut from our tie rod end using our 24mm socket on our impact. So now we're ready to separate our tie rod end from our knuckle, and to do that we've got our ball joint service tool, which hooks onto our knuckle, and then it has a threaded section to push down on your tie rod end link itself. So now we'll go ahead and put our 16mm socket on our impact and run this down and separate our tie rod end from our knuckle. So now we can go ahead and separate our tie rod from our knuckle, and to do that we've got our ball joint service tool hooked onto our knuckle with our threaded section pushing down on our stud for our tie rod end, and we've got our 16mm socket on our impact. We'll go ahead and run this out. And it should pop right out just like that, and then you can go ahead and repeat this process for the other side. So now we can go ahead and remove our brake line and ABS bracket from our knuckle, and we'll use our 12mm socket on our ratchet for that. Go ahead and pull it out of its retainer spot, and just go ahead and put your hardware right back in a couple threads just to help keep track of it. And then you can go ahead and do the same thing for the other side. So now we can go ahead and remove our bracket from our upper control arm. And for that, we'll grab our 10mm socket on our ratchet. Go ahead and remove that. And we'll just, again, thread our bolt in a couple times just to keep track of it. Make sure our line and our bracket is out of the way. And then you can go ahead and repeat this process on the other side. So now we can go ahead and remove our axle nut cap, just in preparation for removing that so we can get a little more travel for when we lower our stuff down. So we're gonna grab either a chisel or a small pry bar and a hammer, and go ahead and give that a few taps to get it loose. And we can work it around and pop that right off. Now we can go ahead and remove our caliper bracket. So we'll remove our 2 bolts with our 19mm socket and swivel on our impact. And we've got our caliper hanger here in place so we can rest our caliper bracket on it so we're not putting tension on our brake lines. Work this off the caliper. And we can hang this up out of the way and make sure you still have slack on all your brake lines just so you're not damaging anything. Now we can go ahead and remove our rotor, and this is just to reduce weight on our knuckle, so when we swing it out it's not super heavy. We'll set this aside. So now just to get some extra range, we're gonna go ahead and pop this line out of its retainer bracket here. So we got our flathead screwdriver. I'm just gonna work that in, pop that bracket open. Now comes that line, just so it's not twisted or anything like that. So now we can go ahead and remove our 4 upper strut mounting nuts using our 14mm ratcheting wrench. We're gonna take them right to the end of their threads, but we're not gonna fully remove them yet, just because when we lower our knuckle here, it's gonna be good to catch it a little bit. So now we can go ahead and remove the pin from our castle nut for our upper control arm ball joint. We'll go ahead and use our needle nose pliers and just pop that right out. Then we'll go ahead and remove our nut using our 19mm socket and a swivel on our impact. And after you remove it, you do want to run it back on a couple threads, just so when we pop this out, it doesn't go flying everywhere. Okay. So now we can get ready to go ahead and pop our upper ball joint out of our knuckle. And again, we've got our service tool here. And this time we're going to use our ratchet just to keep it a little bit more slow in control, because it's a lot more weight on this than a tie rod. So we'll get our ratchet in. And there we go. All right, as you can see, we kept that nut on so our knuckle didn't just go flying. So now we can go ahead and remove our lower strut mounting bolt with our 22mm wrench and our 22mm socket on our impact. We'll remove our nut, and we'll go ahead and run our strut bolt out. Once you get it all the way run out, we'll just go ahead and pop it out and set it aside. So now we're going to get ready to loosen up our lower control arm bolts to allow more travel for our longer suspension. And when we do that, you're definitely going to need alignment after installing this kit, but we're going to go ahead and mark our eccentric locators just for a reference point to kind of get it back close to where it should be. And 2 marks is always better than 1. So you can mark all 4 of your locators. And like I said, you will need alignment, but this is just a good reference to get it back close to where it was. Get all 4 of these marked. Then we'll go ahead and loosen them up. So now we'll take our 24mm socket and swivel on our impact. And again, we're just going to run this out a few threads just to loosen it up. Same thing for the other side. So now we're ready to go ahead and get our ball joint separated from our knuckle. So we'll go ahead and grab our pry bar just to get some leverage. And we're going to push down on our control arm here. Go ahead and remove our nut. And we're going to release our tension and hold on to our knuckle while we do so. Now that we have that separated, we go ahead and lean our knuckle to the side here. Now we do have a bungee cord to help support our knuckle. You can use a bungee or strap or something like that. And we have it hooked to our bracket here. You just don't want to run it on your brake line itself so you don't damage it. And now we have our knuckle out of the way. We can access the rest of our suspension. Next, we'll go ahead and fully remove our top mounting nuts for our strut tower here. Go ahead and release the tension on any that still may have it. And we'll set our nuts aside. And we should be able to lift up on our strut here. And we may have to get some leverage to get it low enough to release from here. So we've given our lower control arm a little bit of a push. Sometimes it sticks in place from the nuts holding it in, but now that we've got it loose, sometimes you just gotta tap on it a little bit. Go ahead and raise our strut up and pull our factory assembly out of the way. So now we're going to get ready to remove our upper control arm, and to do that we have to access this through bolt here for our mounting point. So we're going to go ahead and pop these beauty covers off using our clip removal tool. And we'll simply pop these out. Now you only have to really remove these three here, and you can fold it back. You can remove the whole thing if you'd like, and for demonstration purposes, we will do so. Set that one there. We can remove our front one. And this one will just fold out. So now we have full access to our upper control arm mounting bolt. So now to give ourselves a little extra room, we're going to remove this loom from its little bracket here, and we're simply just going to push that in. There's a little tab here, you just push and pop off. That way that gets out of the way. And then we'll use our 22mm socket and extension along with a swivel on our impact on this side. And it's kind of a tough angle. This is going to be just to get it loose. Get that in position, and we use our 22mm wrench on the other side here. So now we've got it a little bit broken loose. We're going to go back to our impact with our 22 and extension and swivel. And once it's this loose, we can go ahead and attack it with hand tools. And we'll go ahead and remove our nut, as well as our washer on this side. We can go ahead and begin to push our bolt out. And you're going to have to slide your washer on this side back as we remove our bolt, because it doesn't have enough room for that to go through as well. Here we can finish getting our bolt out. Just keep sliding it. Once that's out, we can go ahead and remove our upper control arm and recover our bolt. You want to remove your washer beforehand. Make sure you don't snag on your lines or anything up in here. And go ahead and save your bolt, set your control arm aside. Now once you've finished all this for this side, you can go ahead and repeat the same process for your other side. So now we can begin lowering our rear differential to make room for our lifting blocks for our leaf springs. So we'll go ahead and lower down our pole jacks so we get enough room and slide those in. Now you want to work your pole jacks down in tandem so you keep your differential as level as possible. This makes for easier progress. Notice we added a third pole jack in here. That's just to help keep our driveline angle where we want to keep it. And you'll notice your blocks have a larger end and a smaller end. The larger end is going to face the rear of the vehicle. And then our dowel is going to go into our perch here. And we're just checking to see how much room we have to go. And periodically checking our center. And we're almost there. And we've got that one lined up. Make sure our dowel on our leaf spring gets lined back up with where our block dowel locator is. We can start going back up with it. Now that we have everything lined back up, we can go ahead and get this up back to where it's flush for our block and our spring. Then we can go ahead and get our new U-bolts into place. And we're going to reuse our factory bottom bracket here. Go ahead and get that lined up. And once we get those in position, we'll use our provided flat washers and lock nuts to go ahead and mount our U-bolts to our bracket. Get one on each side to start, just to make sure it stays in place. So before we tighten this side down, we're going to go ahead and get our other side in, and then we can tighten them down both at the same time to raise our differential back up and tighten it evenly. So now that we've got all our U-bolts on, we can go ahead and tighten them down with our 22mm socket on our impact. And you definitely want to try to hold them in place as you start, because they tend to walk a little bit. And we'll alternate to the other side, just to make sure they're pulling evenly. And once you have them tightened down on this side, you can go ahead and repeat this process for your other side. So now it's time to assemble and install our rear shocks. So we'll take our flatter washer here with the larger opening, set that on the bottom. Then we'll grab our flat bushing, no ends, and go ahead and insert that onto our shock tower. And then we'll grab the rest, and they're going to go in the top side of our mount after we get it through. So next we can go ahead and insert the top of our shock into our mount. And then we'll grab our cupped washer here. That's going to go in first, followed by our bushing with our extended end on it. That's going to go into our cupped washer, followed by our flat washer up top. Then we can get our top nut installed. You may need to push up on your shock a little bit to get it all the way through. And we'll get that hand tight. Then we can go ahead and get the bottom mounted, and then we'll tighten this all down. Next, we can go ahead and reinstall our bottom shock mount here. And we're going to use our 17mm bolt. Get that into position. Now you may need to use whatever you're holding your rear up with to adjust to get your bolt through. And once you have that through, go ahead and reinstall your 17mm nut. And we'll relieve some tension on our pole jack here. And then we'll go ahead and tighten down our mounting bolts. Then we'll go ahead and use our 17mm socket on our impact and our 17mm wrench to tighten down our bottom mounting bolt. And then we'll go ahead and get the top tightened. Now we can go ahead and get our top nut tightened down using our 18mm ratcheting wrench. And you want your bushings to flatten out a good bit, so your shock starts to turn like that. And if you need more grip on it, they do have these nipples up top that you can put a wrench on and hold them in place. That should be good to go. And once you've completed this process for this side, you can go ahead and repeat these same steps for the other side. So now we're ready to install our brake line extension brackets. Now one thing here is we took this one off, but we also noticed we had to take these two off as well, the lower brackets, to give us enough room to go ahead and mount our brackets and not have any excess tension on our brake lines. So these are also 12mm just like this one, so same process. Let's go ahead and pull those out as well. And then we'll go ahead and get our S-shaped bracket in place up here at the center first. And it's going to push it back quite a bit. We'll get it kind of in position here. Then we'll reuse our factory hardware for our mounting point on the differential. It's again our 12mm bolt. So we'll get that one loosely in place. We're also going to do the same for these. But for now, we'll just put them up out of the way. So now we can go ahead and grab our provided hardware, which is our bolt and flat washer. For this side, we'll get that through. And then for the back side, it'll be another flat washer and nut. And then we'll tighten down our provided hardware for our extension bracket using our 13mm wrench and our 13mm socket on our ratchet. So now we can go ahead and install our parking brake extension bracket. So we'll go ahead and get that in place with our factory hardware to the original mounting location. Then we'll take our provided 13mm bolt, get our bracket into place. This one does have a slot for a locator. We'll go ahead and get our bolt and washer in place. And on the back side, we'll go ahead and install another flat washer and our 13mm nut. Then we can go ahead and tighten these down using our 12mm socket on our ratchet for our factory bolt. And we'll use our 13mm in extension and a 13mm wrench to tighten our extension bolt. And once you have it complete on this side, you can go ahead and repeat the same thing on the other side. Next, we can go ahead and reconnect our sway bar to our end links. We'll get that back into position here, and then we'll reuse our factory hardware. Let's go ahead and reconnect it. Then we'll go ahead and get the bolt in on the other side, and then we'll tighten these down. And now that we have both of our sway bar end link bolts in, we'll go ahead and tighten those down using our 18mm socket on our impact and our 19mm wrench. And go ahead and do the same thing for the other side. Next, we can go ahead and reinstall our frame rail brackets for our park and brake, as these don't need extensions. We'll go ahead and reuse our factory hardware. And we'll tighten those back down using our 12mm socket on our ratchet. Then go ahead and repeat that for the other side. So now we can begin installing our new front suspension, and we're going to start with our upper control arm. So we're going to get this in place and reinstall our long upper control arm bolt. And to do that, we'll have to slide it in and get it back into position up in here. Remember to put your washer for this side on before you do this, otherwise you won't be able to get it on. So we'll go ahead and get it into position. Just make sure we can line it up at the right angle. So now we've got our upper control arm bolt resting back in position and ready to go through when we mount our upper control arm. It's important to do that first because there's a lot of stuff in the way and it might be a bit difficult to get it back into place. So you just want to take care of that first. And we'll get our control arm in position here. We can work our bolt into the control arm itself. Once we have it back through like this, we can work it all the way back through the whole thing. So now that we have our upper control arm bolt all the way through, we can go ahead and get our washer and our factory nut back onto our bolt. And then we can go ahead and tighten it down. So now we're going to go ahead and snug down our bolt for now. We're not going to fully tighten it yet because we will need to set our suspension, and it's best to tighten it while it's under load. So we use our 22mm socket on our ratchet here and a 22mm wrench. Go ahead and tighten this down. And snug enough to hold it into place, but it's still going to have some maneuverability so we can get all of our components back into place. So now we're ready to install our new strut. So we have our indicator for our location pointing out towards us, and we're going to go ahead and get our top mounting studs into place. Then we can go ahead and get our mounting nuts installed loosely for now. Go ahead and put 2 on the front just to hold it in place. Then we can go ahead and get our bottom section in. So now we can go ahead and get this bottom mount into position using a pry bar for extra leverage. We'll pry down on our lower control arm. And we'll work our strut mount into place. Then we'll reuse our factory mounting bolt down bottom here. Then we'll reinstall our factory nut. Then we can go ahead and tighten that down. Then we'll tighten our top nuts down. And to tighten this down, we'll use our 22mm socket on our impact and our 22mm wrench. And you always want to refer to manufacturer's specific specifications for torquing bolts down. Now we'll go ahead and get our other 2 provided mounting nuts in place on our strut top. Then we'll go ahead and tighten these down using our 15mm ratchet wrench. Next, we can go ahead and get our outer tie rod back into place in the knuckle. Go ahead and line that up. Then we'll reinstall our factory nut. And we're just going to loosely install it for now so we can still get our upper ball joint back into place. Now we can go ahead and get our upper ball joint installed into our knuckle. So we've got it lined up. And even though it is kind of loose, you still want to probably use a pry bar to help get enough leverage to get it all the way through your knuckle. And then we'll go ahead and install our supplied washer and castle nut. Now we'll go ahead and tighten down our castle nut using our 22mm socket and swivel adapter on our impact. You want to make sure your ball joint seats fully into your knuckle. Now we can go ahead and tighten our nut back down for our tie rod end using our 24mm socket on our impact. So now we can go ahead and install our supplied cotter pins for our castle nuts. Go ahead and get that inserted. Then after you have your cotter pin through your stud here, you want to go ahead and bend it over so it protects your threads. There is no real wrong way to bend a cotter pin as long as it's covering the end of your bolt or it is spanned around your nut to protect the nut from spinning and blocking the threads. So now we'll go ahead and install our cotter pin back into our tie rod end here. And while it is always a good idea to never reuse these, for demonstration purposes, we're going to reinstall ours. But these are super cheap, available at any hardware store. You can go ahead and grab yourself a set and just replace them anytime you take them out. Now to bend ours back, we're going to use pliers to help us. Just get them bent over enough to block the threads. Now we can go ahead and reinstall our rotor. So we'll slide that back over our lug studs. And to help us hold our rotor in place, we'll go ahead and grab one of our lug nuts from our wheel here. Just thread that on. And that just helps keep our rotor in place and not moving around while we reinstall our caliper. Now we can go ahead and reinstall our caliper. Get it slid back over the rotor here. Then we can reinstall our factory 19mm mounting bolts. Get our top one in, and now our bottom one. Then we can go ahead and get those tightened down. Then we'll go ahead and get those tightened back down using our 19mm socket and swivel adapter on our impact. So now we can get our brake, line, and ABS brackets back into place on our knuckle. So we'll reinstall our 12mm bolt here, and we'll tighten that down with our 12mm socket on our ratchet. Then we can reinsert our ABS line here into our little clip on the back side of that. Make sure that clips back down. Then we'll install this upper bracket here on our new control arm using our supplied 10mm bolt. Now you notice this tab has an ear on it, but the new control arm does not have an ear. So you can angle it a certain way to where it doesn't really fold, but it will end up folding just a little bit. We'll go ahead and get our bracket threaded in here. Then we can tighten that down using our 10mm socket on our ratchet. And we'll go ahead and tighten this down now. So we're not going to fully tighten down our upper control arm bolts or our lower control arm bolts or reinstall our sway bar end links until we get the wheels back on and preload the suspension. And this will avoid any tearing of any bushings, and it's a proper way to do that. So once you've got this all completed on this side, you can go ahead and repeat this process on the other side. So now we can come under the vehicle and remove our skid plate to access our sway bar mounts as well as our front differential. So we're going to start that by removing these 10mm screws at the bottom of our bumper here on our skid plate. So we'll grab our 10mm socket and our impact and go ahead and run these out. And you should have one in the center. Ours is no longer with us, but from factory there should be 3 here. Now that we've got those out, we can come and get our 12mm mounting bolts for our skid plate itself out. So we'll use our 12mm socket on our impact to go ahead and get those off. Two front ones out. So after you have your 2 front ones out, you should have 3 12mm bolts located up here throughout the rear and middle of your skid plate. So we'll go ahead and start with this one here. And you should have one in the middle here, as well as one right here. Then once you have almost all of your bolts out, you do want to support your skid plate while you remove the last bolt so it doesn't fall on you. Now that we have all of our hardware out of our skid plate, it does have 2 hooks holding it in place up front here. So we're just gonna let it swing forward and hang for now, and we'll be able to access everything we need to access from here. So now we've come to our front differential here, and we've got it braced up with these pole jacks. And what we're gonna do is remove our 3 mounting bolts for our mounts here, and we can install our spacers. So we'll take our 19mm socket on our impact and go ahead and run these off. First one out. And after we have our front 2 out, we're going to loosen our rear one here. So now that we've got our mounting bolts out and our rear one loose, but not all the way out, we're going to go ahead and lower our differential down a bit, give ourselves clearance. Now it may come off of your pole jacks, that's fine. Again, this rear bolt and both of your axles are still in place, so you should have ample safety. Go ahead and move your diff down. So now we've got our front diff mount bolts out, and we've got our diff lowered down. Now we did have to kind of pull on a little bit, but it will go. And also, as you can see, for demonstration purposes, we went ahead and removed our skid plate. So we'll grab our 2 supplied spacers here. We're going to set them in place in between our differential mount and our frame. And then we'll grab our supplied 9/16 by 6 bolts and swap over our washer here from our factory hardware. We'll go ahead and get these up through here. This may take a little bit of finagling to get them to work up into it. We'll get them both in place. Now you may have to use a pry bar on your differential to get them to straighten out just a little bit. And you don't want to pry on your oil pan. There is a space right above your oil pan on the case that you can use. That's a little bit safer. You just want to work your hardware in place. So now we've got our bolts worked into place. Now we'll grab our supplied lock nuts here. These are a bit tricky to get to, but you can access them. Just try to be patient and work your nuts into place. That one on, then we'll do the same thing for the other side. Now we'll get our other nut into our mounting bolt here. And this is definitely a tricky one. Just gotta be patient, gotta work it in there. It's very hard to get to with your hands. You just kind of set it on top of the bolt and just slowly work it on until it gets threaded on. Then we can go ahead and tighten these down. Now that we've got them in, we can go ahead and tighten these down using our 13/16 socket on our impact and a 7/8 wrench to hold it in place. And then we'll go ahead and do the same thing for the other bolt, and then we'll run our rear one back in with our 19mm socket. Now we can go ahead and remove our sway bar to install our sway bar drop brackets. So we'll go ahead and grab our 17mm socket on our impact and get this off. There should be 2 bolts for each mount. We'll going to do it one side at a time, so you only actually need to drop one side, and we'll install the spacer and then drop the other side and do that. Now we can go ahead and grab our supplied drop spacers here. And we'll go ahead, get this one into place. Then we'll grab our supplied longer hardware and get these threaded in. Then we can go ahead and tighten this side up using our 19mm socket on our impact. After you've got this side complete, you can go ahead and repeat this process for the other side. So now that we've got our drop brackets on for our sway bar, we can go ahead and reconnect our sway bar end links to our lower control arm here. And these might be a little bit of a pain to get into position. May need a pry bar to help you out with this. So we're going to leave our end links disconnected for now. As with a few other things we have to do, we're going to have to wait until we load the suspension and bring it back down in order to reinstall those and tighten up some components that need to be tightened under loaded conditions. So now we're going to go ahead and install our bump stop spacers. So to do that, we're going to grab a large wrench or whatever you may have to fit around this large piece here. And we'll go ahead and grab our pliers and pull ours off. We'll go ahead and get our factory one unscrewed. Now we'll go ahead and install our spacer. And that simply will thread back in where our factory bump stop was. And then we're going to reinstall our factory bump stop into the spacer. We'll run this all the way tight. We'll grab our channel locks again, and then we can use our factory bump stop to tighten down it and the spacer as well at the same time. And once you have this one all the way tight, there is an identical one on the back side of the lower control arm, as well as two for the other side, and you're just going to repeat the same process for all three of them. So now we can go ahead and get our skid plate hung back into place. Hooks lined up here. Make sure our mounting holes are back where they need to be. And we can go ahead and bolt it up. So now that we have our skid plate hung, we're going to set our provided hardware, which is a 13mm bolt and flat washer, into our shallow socket here. And then we're going to grab one of our provided spacers and set that on the back side of our bracket. Get our hardware up through it. And we'll go ahead and get our first bolt just started so we can get the other one in as well. Once we've got that in a few threads, we'll do the same thing for our other one. Again, we're supposed to have 3, but we only have 2 on this one. We'll go ahead and again get our bolt into our shallow socket, get our spacer in position, and our bolt through it. And we can go ahead and tighten these up. Then we can install our front hardware. Then we can go ahead and reuse our factory 12mm bolts to reconnect our front. Now we'll go ahead and reinstall our 10mm screws for the bottom of our bumper. And we're using our 10mm socket on our impact to do that. And again, you should have one in the middle here as well. Ours is, as mentioned, no longer with us. So now we've got the wheels thrown back on this thing and we're getting ready to lower it down to load the suspension so we can do our final tightening of our suspension components that require loading before we tighten them so that we don't rip any bushings or anything like that. So now we have the vehicle on the ground and the suspension is preloaded. So we're going to begin by retightening our lower control arm bolts. Now remember, you will have to take this vehicle in for an alignment after installing this lift kit. It will be 100% needed, but our reference marks and tightening it down will at least get it close enough so you won't destroy your tires on the way to the alignment shop. So we'll grab our 24mm socket on our ratchet and tighten these down. And you always want to refer to the manufacturer torque spec for anything suspension related that you are tightening down. So now we can go ahead and reinstall our factory 19mm bolt for our sway bar end link. So we get that lined up, work it into place, get it started. Then we use our 19mm socket on our impact to tighten that back down. So now we can go ahead and tighten down our upper control arm bolt. So we'll grab our 22mm wrench and our 22mm socket on our ratchet. Go ahead and tighten these down. And again, as with your lower suspension components, you always want to refer to the manufacturer torque spec for all of your bolts. And now that we have that tight, we can go ahead and reinstall our little beauty covers here. Just push all of our pins back into place. Our front one in. Go ahead and reinstall our rear one here. And once you've completed this process on this side, you can go ahead and repeat the same process for your other side. Now we can go ahead and get our bump stop extensions in place. So we'll grab a large set of pliers here, grab onto our factory bump stops. You can use these large channel lock style pliers, or you can use a pipe wrench if you have one. And once you break them loose, they should spin out pretty easily. And once we have these out, we'll set our pliers aside. Now we can go ahead and grab our bump stop extensions and we'll thread our factory bump stop into that. Run that into there. Then we'll take our extension, thread that into our factory mounting point for our bump stop. Then we'll go ahead and grab our channel lock pliers again, and we'll snug this down. Then once you have this tightened up, you have an identical one on the front side of your axle as well as two on the other side, and you can go ahead and repeat this exact same process for those other ones. Alrighty guys, that about wraps up our review and install of a Rough Country 3.5-inch suspension lift kit with M1 monotube shocks for the 2007 to 21 Tundra, excluding the TRD Pro. Thanks for watching, and as always, for everything Tundra, keep it right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.